Hey, my name is Jade, and I like to paint with pixels. And for today's video, we're going to be continuing our character design for a witch who was behind my big flower project last year called Hettie. Last week we focused on her hairstyles, facial features, and practiced drawing her with a few different expressions. Today, we're going to be focusing on her outfit and the gear that she takes on her adventures, along with her cat familiar Vin. I started with trying to draw out some thumbnail sketches to define the overall shape and design of the outfit. I've seen in a lot of other YouTube videos about character design that this is one of the first steps to get the overall vibe of a character and understand their shape language. I wanted Hettie to feel very friendly and approachable, so I opted for rounder shapes to give a more friendly vibe. If I'm being completely honest, this step did not go to plan. Part of me thinks that because of the smaller resolution with pixel art, it made this step feel a lot less useful for me. I felt like I was over-exaggerating shapes of the outfit just so that they didn't blend into one blob, rather than blocking out shapes that I actually wanted. It did highlight some elements that made it into the final design, like the asymmetrical accessories, but for the most part, I felt really frustrated at this stage. I think I was putting a lot of pressure on making this the best character design ever, when this is the first time that I've properly delved into it. So of course there's going to be a lot of trial and error, making mistakes, and learning from them, but I think my brain wanted to be really good at this from the beginning. I think I was getting frustrated that none of the designs felt like they were working, and I sort of missed the point of iteration at this stage and revisiting old ideas. I kept focusing on the next design and thinking, well, that doesn't work, and then moved on to the next one without really looking back. It took a while for me to revisit them, and actually one of the earlier designs is the one that ends up being the final outfit. So this definitely taught me to keep track of my ideas. Don't just draw over it and keep iterating on one design on the same layer. For me, I use the animation tools in Pixsquare and just duplicate the frame every time I want to change up the design. Then I can just flick through between the frames to revisit those ideas, and maybe try them again in a new way. I really wanted to release some of the pressure that I was putting on myself with this, because this is just a personal project for me. This isn't going out to anyone as like a commission or a professional portfolio piece. This is just something for me to develop a character that I really like, and that's okay. This exercise unintentionally taught me to slow down and focus on parts of the design that you really enjoy, which for me was the details and adding in the small elements like the accessories. So instead of just using one color to block out the entire outfit, I started to add different values and different colors. Having those tie into their personality and backstory is something that I really enjoy, and so I wanted to focus on that more, and that would help me with building up the overall outfit and the shapes. Speaking of, I really enjoyed designing the utility belt and all the little accessories that go along with it. I thought about this a lot more in writing than I did in drawing. I kind of wish I drew more elements for it, but there's always time in the future to explore that. The one that I did want to draw in more detail was this bottled terrarium. I wanted this to sort of act like a bag of holding, but specifically for plants, since she's going on an adventure to discover as many plants as she can and bring them back to her grandma. If she tried to take the plant samples from every single plant she discovered, it would be way too much to carry, and also it would be tricky to sort of preserve them in a way. So this felt like a nice container for that. I found these really cool references of a potion bottle holder, and it has this belt loop which you would just slide onto your belt, and I really liked how versatile this was. I wanted to include one of the flowers inside the bottle in the close-up version. And at first I had the phoenix tier, just because I really like the shape of it, and I thought it would be cool in terms of visuals for this specifically, but you actually can't see it because the belt loops were quite big, and it kind of covered it in this drawing in particular. So I thought I'd do a version with smaller flower buds, and this one is called a celestium, which was rumoured to only be found around areas where a fallen star has landed. So they have this really intense glow and act as like little lanterns at nighttime. For the Alphabet Superset project, I drew all of the flowers in black and white, so I never really imagined them in colour before, so this is a nice quick little experiment. and something that I might delve into more in the future with the other flowers. I did a couple of sketches exploring the staff as well. I actually did a similar approach to the initial outfit sketches by doing sort of silhouette thumbnails to try and get the shape down, and I think it worked a lot better in this scenario than it did for the outfits. I think because the staff itself is just one object, whereas the outfit that I'm trying to do has a lot of different layers and different elements, so it would just sort of turn into this blob shape. And I felt like I wasn't getting any inspiration or useful information from it when I was just using one color. Whereas with the staff, I wanted it to have a very strong silhouette on its own, so I felt like I could explore that using this method more. I knew that I wanted it to be sort of branch-like in shape. Hettie and her grandma live in this giant tree in the forest, so I thought it would be really cool if her staff was actually part of that tree, and it was something that she could take with her as sort of like taking a little bit of home with her, wherever she went. I wanted this idea of Hettie being very sentimental about objects to carry out throughout her design, including her staff. So I added in a couple of smaller branches here and there, which felt like the perfect hook to add little trinkets and charms to that she would collect on her journey. It also kind of looks like a giant cat tree, so I think adding those smaller branches near the bottom of the tree, though a little impractical, I thought it would be fun to have like little trinkets on there, and they're just high enough for Vin to sort of bat around and play around with, and I thought that was quite cute and tried to include that in the final pose as well. I also wanted to quickly imagine how it would look when Hettie was casting spells using the staff, and I wanted it to have somewhere that the magical energies could sort of concentrate to, sort of like classic wizard staff vibes, but I didn't want it to always be present, only when she was casting the spell. I settled on trying to curve the tree branches naturally to form this sort of diamond shape at the top of the staff, and then at the center is where the sort of green energy will appear whenever she casts a spell. I also wanted some of the vine elements that are wrapped around different parts of the staff to glow, just so that it tied in nicely with the rest of the staff. For the outfit, we eventually settled on something that is practical, but still has the floaty sort of petal-like elements to it. I love the idea of a layered skirt. It was one of the only elements that I knew I wanted to include in the design. I think because it reminded me of petals sort of layered on top of each other, similar to the shape of a tulip. And I knew that I wanted to try and include some floral elements, but a bit more subtly, just through the shape and layering of the different elements, rather than just decorating her with flowers. I really like the idea of also having some sort of patchwork element to the outfit. I think alongside her love of collecting sentimental objects and collecting a lot of them, I feel like she would also want to repurpose them in some way, and doesn't like the idea of wasting things. So she doesn't mind if, like, her skirt rips and her grandma repairs it, she'll still wear it with the patches. And I think that's just like a nice little pop of colour here and there as well. When I was adding a corset to her top and sort of breaking it up into the different panels, I thought it would be cool to add that patchwork element to some of the panels as well. So on the very side panels, they are covered in patches that were probably sewn by her and her grandma, just with scrap fabric that was around the home. I think this is my favourite part of the outfit, just because it feels quite unique to her in what would be a pretty normal design for an outfit. I, of course, had to give Hettie a bag of holding as well, because, oh man, if she just had a normal backpack, that backpack would be twice the size of her, because she would just not be able to carry all of the stuff that she would want to take with her. I think personality-wise, she is someone who almost over-prepares for most situations and wants to bring a bunch of stuff with her, so having a bag of holding that can hold any item she needs for any situation, I feel like would put her mind at ease a bit. I could imagine her having way more accessories, all having this belt loop attachment, so that she can swap and change between whatever she needs. I feel like she would keep a lot of these extra accessories in her bag of holding, and then take them out whenever she wanted to add them to the belt. I think for sure she would have a little drawing kit, and maybe a paint set, like one of those smaller paint sets that you would have for plein air painting. I think it might be fun to do a little illustration of what's in her bag, but what's in her bag of holding. But that's a fun idea for future me to try. I wanted to include the bag of holding as part of the utility belt design. So I imagine it would have sort of belt loops to then slot onto her belt, and have it sort of more like a satchel bag rather than a backpack. I wasn't sure that it would be practical to have a backpack as well, because one would be covering the other, so a side satchel felt like the way to go with this design. It's also nice because it adds a bit of asymmetry to the design, and I think that having the satchel on one side and then having the skirt sort of be more of a wrap skirt with its own asymmetrical element allows them to sort of subtly balance each other out quite nicely. And finally, with the full pose, I felt like it would be wrong if I didn't include Vin as part of the character design as well. I haven't really drawn cats before, so this was good practice, and I learned I definitely practice more of drawing cats, and drawing pets in general. I know that normally witches are depicted with having a black cat as a companion, but I thought that a ginger tabby cat that was quite mischievous and sort of playful fit the design a bit more, and also the colours of the orange and the green felt like they complemented each other quite well. I have Vin appear a couple times in the journal entries, and a lot of the time he is causing mischief and messing around, and so I wanted to try and include that in the base pose as well, with a couple of adjustments. Here is the final result! This was a really cool mini project to work on. It's been nice to revisit the world of Azura and finally put a face to the person who's made all the journal entries for the alphabet superset. Even though the start of this project was really tough, I'm really proud of the final result. This was a challenging project for me, but in a good way. It's something that is so out of my comfort zone, as someone who used to think that I would never be able to draw people or design entire outfits. And obviously I still have a long way to go, but it's been really nice to bring together a lot of the different aspects that I've been practicing and learning over the past few months, and putting them together into a bigger project. When I was looking at my reference board, I kept finding pose references for little illustrations that I would like to do to build out the world for Hettie. Things like when she's drawing a flower, or maybe collecting flowers or taking them back to her grandma's cottage. This sparked a lot of new ideas, which I think is exciting, and felt quite rewarding after struggling so much at the start. I'm looking forward to drawing her more, and having this reference help me maintain consistency throughout the drawings, and remind myself of all the little details to include as well. I hope you enjoyed the video! If you're interested in the magical flowers that I mentioned earlier, check out this video here, where we go through all 26 flowers and the little backstories behind them. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care out there. Goodbye!